Hi, I'm Stacy, and welcome to Beyond the Mic. This is a space where we dive deep into the moments, stories, and breakthroughs that shape who we are and who we're becoming. Together, we'll explore personal growth, mental health, and the motivation you need to create lasting change. This is more than just a podcast. This is your moment to break free, rewrite your story, and step boldly into the life you've always dreamed of. It's time to stop holding back, to rise, to thrive, and to transform. Let's go beyond the mic.
The biggest thing I can tell you is don't be afraid to emulate the podcasts you like.
Okay.
So what you're a fan of, you're engaged for a reason, right? And your hope is that your audience is going to be engaged. So this is more of a, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lifestyle kind of, day in the life type of thing. I know a lot of people do that. People like Mark Maron, who, when I pulled up to your house, I was like, we used to record our podcast out of my grandma's house. This is before I got married. And we got a smaller office/studio, and then we got a bigger office studio. I'm like, man, this feels familiar.
Give you like a flashback.
Yeah, it did. And I just remember at the time thinking, Mark Maron, if you don't listen to his podcast, it's great. He talks to all kinds of people. He does it out of his garage. And he's been doing it out of his garage for 10 years. And then randomly, he'll have people like Obama in his garage doing the podcast. So there's no wrong answer.
You know what I love about today's age or whatever, is that you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
I mean, you have endless possibilities with the internet.
Yeah.
You can buy everything off of Amazon or anywhere if you want. And you can, with your own budget, you're not gonna have the budget of big companies.
No, it's the Wild West. It's this way in every creative field we're finding right now, including and especially film, is that the internet and streaming and YouTube has changed the world so much that there are no right answers. There's no formula anymore. There's no status quo, and if there is, nobody cares. So.
Right, because then you
at least creative
do your own flavor. You just put whatever it is that you want.
So no, like I said, this is not easy. We know that, so I applaud you for it, and it's cool to know. I'll be honest with you, and by the way, we can reiterate any of this for the episode if you want, but I could probably count in one hand how many people out of our high school are actually doing something creative, and that's sad, but it's also encouraging when you bump into people like, oh, okay, cool, you're doing it, you're doing something. So yeah, it's a good thing. I promise you. I have a lot of friends that I was either in guitar with or in auto tech or whatever in school, and then they didn't end up following what they wanted to do. They kind of just did the normal adulting
and it's pursuit. So sad, huh? I guess there is a formula.
Yeah, sure.
To where you have good grades and you get a good job and stay there for I don't know how many years, and you have a decent life.
If there's anything I remember, I remember you having good grades. I remember you being, and again, it doesn't surprise me. I was like, Ricardo, because that dude was up there too.
One of those people are nauseating when you talk about school. Like, oh, that typical girl that just likes to read and has good grades. If I was looking at myself from the outside, you're like, oh, I should think this girl. Like,
my wife is currently doing her doctorates and is in her dissertation phase. So I'm married to somebody who loves school. I went the opposite. I got my degree and stuff, but I went the creative route, and I was always in love with the art. So that's...
I've always had this clash because I love school, and I've met I can count, with my hand, the amount of people that say I love school. Like,
sure,
I don't know, maybe 3 people, but I was that person that when it was, I don't know, August 1st or 3rd, whatever, and it was like you're going back to school, even for college, like I would go to Walmart, Target, whatever, and then I'll pick my pencils and my pens and my notebooks.
If I remember anything, I probably remember that about you. Chances are we didn't have class together because I'm like, yeah, she's one of the smart ones. That's not my crowd. But
But then, like I say, I've always had this clash because I love school, but I've also had like this need to just express myself creatively, you know, just whether it is, you know, drawing or which I'm not really good at.
you don't
You
have to be.
or just like this. And I was just telling you earlier, and I don't think I've ever told anyone. I think you're the first person I've told what I told you.
Really?
But when I was little, I had, you know how you have your favorite aunts and uncles.
Sure.
I had a favorite aunt, and she was always like telling me, "Oh, when you're older, I'm gonna be your manager, and you're gonna be an actress." And
Okay.
you know, because like when I was little, I was like so dramatic. You know, like I was always crying, or you know, I was just your typical girl.
That's an indicator.
And so, so she was always telling me, and what I just told you, like, I don't know, it always stuck with me, but I never did anything about it because I never told anyone.
Okay.
And after this many years, you're the first person I told.
Well, if you were gonna tell anybody, the filmmaker's probably appropriate.
But actually, with no intention. I mean, it's just so, I guess, just because of this and because of what you do, that it unlocked a memory, maybe, or like a thought that I
Sure.
had.
It's also never too late. And I know that's a cliche, but it really isn't. I mean, especially in an industry, in the creative industry. I have a friend who you're probably friends with her too, or you know her. She went to school with us. She went to high school with us.
What's her name?
Ana Chaparro.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She married someone from
Yeah.
high school too, right?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
did.
I know.
She's she's always been a friend, and she's a doctor now or whatever she is. She's I think, or she just got her doctorates. No, she's a practicing doctor. She just opened her new practice, but she was a theater kid in high school, and she would message, like when she knew I was doing film. She would message me, "Have you ever needed an actress?" And now she's a doctor, and she still messages me when we have casting calls and stuff. Like she'll send in a monologue or an audition and stuff like that. She's still again. I don't think it's ever too late. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
And not just with acting, with any creative endeavor. I'm gonna send you a link to a podcast. It's extremely inspiring. With Robert Rodriguez, who's a director out of Austin, who, you know, he's the guy responsible for films like Spy Kids and Alita Battle Angel and Desperado and all sorts of amazing, Sin City. And he's with a guy named, I think the guy's name is Lex Friedman or something like that. He has a podcast, a very popular podcast. And they're just talking about creativity for 2 hours and how to spark creativity and why it matters and passing it on to your kids and that type of stuff. So I'll send it to you. It's immensely
I would love
inspiring.
that.
Yeah.
And you know, we didn't even start, but
Yeah.
but let me just introduce to you.
Sure.
We have director, producer,
Mm-hmm.
writer. Are you an actor?
No, my crew has forced me to do some cameos here and there, but no.
Are you chairman for Torre Production, Tower Cast Network, host of On Film? I mean, you name it. Carlos de la Torre.
Well, thank you for having
Thank
me.
you
This
so
is
much
great.
for being here.
Absolutely.
I'm just so happy just because of what we were just talking right now. One of the things that really I guess stand it out is just that you're from El Paso and you're doing something creative.
Yes.
And like we were just saying, it's almost like, especially if like Mexican culture or just Latinos in general, we have this formula. And because of our, you know, generations, like our parents, our grandparents, and the way that they live life, creativity is it's not part of it. You know, it's just like hard work, and just do what you're told and just live your life.
Yeah.
And when our mutual friend told me about you, like I was so excited because I was like, oh my God, someone from here is doing something different, and it could really inspire someone to just do that thing that they've always wanted to do, but they don't know anyone that's doing it.
Yeah.
So I got really excited.
Hopeful. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate our mutual friend for putting us in touch. He's kept tabs on us. He's always checking in, and he's always seeing what we're up to, and it's really cool. But no, that's what we set out to inspire. You know, not 2 days ago. Was it on Tuesday? We brought out a bunch of recent graduates from UTEP in the DMP program, which is the digital media production program at UTEP. And these kiddos are doing some crazy things. You know, they're pushing the needle forward that we kind of left when we left UTEP. You know, and they have their own podcasts now, and they're doing films, they're doing short films, they're doing showcases, and they're doing it all on their own, because we know we've always thought of UTEP for film students being this kind of organic, do it yourself, nobody's going to do it for you type of film school, and it's the best type of film school to adapt to. And we brought these kids out to the studio and showed them what we're up to, and we've brought them onto some of our productions to be production assistants, and so that they can get their feet wet, because we never had people looking out for us like that. We never had. So over the years, we kind of always promised ourselves we're incredibly tirelessly busy, but if we can inspire creatives to not give up on it. We know so many people, so many talented people who left this because they kind of gave up or life got in the way or whatever, and we hate to see it happen. You know, if we can be a small spark of inspiration for people, we like to. So glad we can do this. Happy to be here to try to hopefully inspire.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure you're going to. But I have some questions here. What first pulled you towards filmmaking, and how did Tower Productions become your vision and your vehicle? How did it start?
Yeah. I can't take full credit. I have two other partners, two other owners of Tower who very serendipitously I met. To backtrack a little bit, I've always wanted to do something creative. I've always, since like literally elementary school, have been in guitar, music lessons, stuff like that, and loved being a musician. I was in multiple bands and did that for a little while, and cool. got to tour a little bit. And well, I don't know about that, but always loved it. But in the back of my mind, music was always just a love, and it was never something I was going to pursue as a career. I always knew that. So come college, I did the sensible thing in my head. I've always loved history. I've always been a massive fan of history, and I loved learning. When it came to history and writing, I could do math, science, everything else in school I could care less about. But like you say, you know, my parents are not creatives, but they always tell me they wish they would have scratched that itch a little more growing up. But they're not. They did the sensible thing. My mom's in real estate, and my dad's he's done a ton of different things, but most recently a truck driver. That's been his career for 20 years or so. And he's always worked in mechanics or trucks. And I went to Socorro High School and did the automotive program and did that. And I
think that's right. I know you.
That's it. Okay.
Yes. Yes, because I took a class.
Okay.
For mechanics on my senior year.
Oh, maybe. Was it, you know what? My senior year, we were at Western Tech.
Okay.
No,
never mind.
Maybe. Well, regardless, I was probably right.
I mean, I'm just trying to...
Like Mr. Sagan, yeah. Anyways, I did that and kind of explored that. But even that, I was like, my mom was always keen. My mom was a high school dropout. My dad was a college dropout. So especially my mom was like, you're going to college. I don't care what you do, but you're going to go to college.
Yeah.
And she would always push for that. So I did the automotive thing just to have it in my back pocket, just so I could change my own oil and won't have to pay somebody to do that, that type of thing. And because I liked it, because my family, that's all you did. I had cousins and uncles, that's all they did, were auto diesel mechanics, auto diesel truck drivers, stuff like that. And I always knew that world enough to get familiar with it. And I get to college and I study history up until my junior year. The last class I had to take at EPCC, I had to take an elective, and there was an intro to film class. And I thought, well, I love film. Like, I've always loved film. I've always been obsessed with the behind the scenes of a film. My brother and I grew up watching films. We're products of divorce, so we always had to find a sense of escapism, and it was either music or film. And we loved movies growing up. We'd always buy the DVDs and watch the behind the scenes, and that always was very fascinating. And my brother even did animation for a little bit, and that was kind of his outlet growing up. So I've always loved it. I thought I'll take this intro to film class. It could be cool. And it was eye-opening. Not necessarily the class itself, though I had a great professor and great students. But I met my business partner, my best friend, Austin Young, and we were literally, the way I say it's serendipitous because we were placed in the same group together. And the course ran through a semester, and we had to do reports on films or do this, that, and the third. And then the more we'd talk about it, the more our group of 4 would talk about it. Me and Austin were like, we should make a short film. Have you ever made a short film? I was like, no, I've never done that. Well, yeah, we should do it. And he would say stuff like, I have a friend who I went to high school with. He's really good with camera. He's been wanting to do film forever. I could bring him on. I was like, all right, cool. And I guess we talked about it so much that over winter break, I wrote a script. I was like, all right, I'm going to give this a shot. I wrote the script. And I texted him. I was like, hey, were you serious? Because I got the script. Like, are we going to do this? And he's like, yeah, great. Let me call my buddy. We'll set up a meeting. And we got together, the 3 of us. And one of us was the director, writer. The other one, Austin, was the producer and the editor. And then Eric Sanchez, our third partner, another really good friend of ours, he did all the cinematography, did all the camera work. And that was it. We set out to do a film called Sun City Lights, our first short film. And that took place half in El Paso, half in Austin. So we were super ambitious. We, go to Austin and film for a day there. And it was an amazing experience. And from then on, we're like, okay, I guess we're going to keep doing this. And, 40 plus short films later, a feature film, some documentaries, music videos, all sorts of stuff. And now being in development for maybe 20 projects being in development right now for 2 we're shooting this year, 2 we're in post-production for, and then a number of other films we're pitching at the moment, stuff like that. So, we're coming up on 10 years next year. So this is our 9th year of doing this.
Did you finish
school?
Yes.
Yeah, I did. So literally after that class, I transferred to UTEP the next semester. And the first thing I did was I changed my major I double majored. I got a double bachelor's in digital media production and history.
Okay.
And I finished school and did the whole thing.
But while you guys were doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that we tell young filmmakers, especially filmmakers who are either going to college or in college, is as great as we had certain professors at UTEP and EPCC, the point of film school for us was just to connect with other like-minded people, building your network. That's the biggest thing college can offer you, at least for film.
Yes.
That was the biggest thing it offered us, was to meet other filmmakers we still make films with today. Very close friends that I met at UTEP, and at EPCC. So during my 2.5 years at UTEP, we must have made in that period, 20 films in that time.
And that's great because it gives you the experience, which is very different than the theory.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of the weird situation. On paper, UTEP isn't a film school. The closest film school we have is NNSU. Okay. So not too far off, but on paper, UTEP is a digital media program. So it encompasses radio, TV. Before we got there, it was more geared towards news. Mm-hmm. So you graduated from that program to work at KFOX or KTSM or whatever. We changed that. I'm very proud to say that our class was the one that shifted it to a film program.
Oh.
And really put the emphasis on film and TV. And we're kind of happy to report that the new kids at UTEP are like, yeah, we've pushed it, but now it's really more about film and TV.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, yeah, we did that for you, because that was not the case back then. But no, in a very proud manner. I may say this with all just proud that we were able to shift that needle forward, because we set up our own screenings, we set up our own showcases to show our films. And again, we would reach out to the actors. We'd go to the theater department at UTEP or wherever and cast actors. And then eventually that grew to, getting people out of New Mexico or LA or New York. And, but it all really did start in college and building our network. And okay, you're good at that. You're going to be our sound guy. You're going to be our cinematographer, our lighting gaffer. And now, thankfully, that's evolved into us working with pretty much the same 30, 35 people who we know are extremely well at their jobs, the best in the city, maybe even the region. And just the quality, we're pushing that status quo to make better quality films out of El Paso. And the number one goal we set out for is, at the time, El Paso was famous for 3 films. All 3 of these films have to do with drug cartels or human trafficking. And it's like Lone Wolf McQuade, which was back in the 80s. It's a great little film if you want to see El Paso on the screen. It's a cool little thing. And then you have Steven Soderbergh's Traffic, and then you have Sicario. Those were the big films that shot in El Paso, and all of them had to do with drugs and human trafficking. Mm-hmm. They're important topics. Yes. I'm not trying to diminish them, but we wanted to destigmatize El Paso. Mm-hmm. Anybody outside of El Paso, you ask them, I'm sure you've ran into this in college or whatever, you ask them, you tell them I'm from El Paso, and they think one of 2 things. They think the border, or they think the desert. That's all they have in there. Like the desert,
or
like
military.
Or military. Yeah, you're right. But it's like they literally see the what are they called, the they literally see the wooden buildings in the desert, this wild wild west thing. They literally see the plants rolling in their heads. So we wanted to just destigmatize that, and that mission hasn't really changed. That we can make films in El Paso that are universal stories that anybody in the world can relate to. And we're starting to see the fruits of our labor a little bit in that, because now we get feedback from our films and film festivals from all over the world. Our most recent film that we're really proud of, was a really special piece, just had a premiere in India, and we're getting feedback from those people. So I met someone in Miami. I went to a conference out there, and she was from India, and she's a graphic artist, and she's extremely talented. And we start talking, and oh yeah, so you're a filmmaker, out of Texas, and oh man, that's amazing. It's like, yeah, what have you done? Well, our latest thing, we just did this film with Eller Coltrane, who's if you've ever seen the film Boyhood, he was the lead in that film, and Jessica Meraz, who did like Supergirl and Nancy Drew and Major Crimes and all these TV shows. And then she's like, oh my gosh, Boyhood is one of my top 3 favorite films of all time. And I'm like, wow, you're from India? And she's like, yeah. She's like, well, that's Texas filmmaking. That film was made in Austin predominantly. And it blew my mind to understand. And then I sent her my film, and I said, hey, our film's showing in India. Yeah. And she's like, oh, I'm going to tell people about it. And it's very sweet, sharing our posts and stuff like that. But yeah, it premiered at the Kalahari Film Festival. That was our Asian kind of premiere. And only a few months before that, we premiered it here in El Paso. So it's that type of thing that really excites us to understand that our stories are no longer just El Paso stories. They're universal, and people relate to love, loss, and betrayal, and they're all human emotions. And that's what we try to explore in Tower, is the human condition via, not just dramatic films, but comedies, horror films. We do everything. We're not genre specific, and people really connect.
Is there like a favorite genre that you have?
No, well, yes. I'm more impartial to drama and comedy, more on the drama side. But we have like our other co-owner, Eric. He's the master of horror, and he knows horror cinema like the back of his hand. But no, I'm more impartial to like classic cinema and drama and things like the Before trilogy by Richard Linklater, or In the Mood for Love of Hong Kong cinema. What's the things? And Good Will Hunting is my favorite film of all time. So that might give you some insight. I love musicals. I'm very, very impartial to musicals. New stuff like La La Land and In the Heights, but classic musicals like Singing in the Rain and The Brothers Richard Borg and all these and I really can't talk about it ad nauseum. So stop me whenever.
No.
But yeah, I'm more impartial to dramas, musicals. That's kind of my space.
And out of all the works that you've done, was there one in specific where you're like, oh yes, this is what I'm meant to do?
Oh man, that's interesting. I don't. We always talk about this concept of never wanting to feel like we've arrived, because that seems like, then what now?
Yeah.
So we always kind of follow this concept of like, even when we have the multi-million-dollar budgets and stuff like that, it's like, that's cool. What's next? Like we always try to never feel like we arrived, but to feel in our element. We did a film. It's almost like my filmmaking career I defined by after this film and before this film, which is a film we did called Town Square Tale. And it's a silent film. It's actually part of a silent trilogy. And it's a short film, but we went about doing things the right way. We got the right crew. And we always had, but this was a very specific situation. We got film permits to close San Jacinto Plaza downtown and kind of took over that for 2 or 3 nights. Excuse me. And, the film commissioner came down and was supporting us. And my producer, Austin, he always laughs at me because we had a 30-plus person crew. We had, 3 or 2 cast members, maybe 20 or 30 extras. So this was a big set.
Wow.
And this is the first time I worked with my cinematographer, Michael Lalao, who's, or like the first solo thing he did. He had cinematography, a couple other films. But this was the first time just me and him were collaborating on the visuals. And he was a kid kind of fresh out of UTEP too. So he was finding his footing. But this was an amazing opportunity to show what we're made of. And we did, and we're very extremely happy with that film. And everything after that felt like we're doing this properly. Anything before that's kind of like film school. Like everything before that was like, we did like 20 shorts in 1 year. We did a feature film over a summer. And though those were all great experiences and they taught us a lot, that just felt like the learning curve. It felt like base camp or boot camp for our film careers. But everything after A Town Square Tale made us think, okay, yeah, we got this. We know exactly what we're doing. And it doesn't matter what budget tier we're making pictures on. It's the same thing. In different capacities, sometimes you have better toys to play with.
Yeah, right.
But even if, we've made films for cheap, we've made films for $500.
Okay.
And then we've made films for $5,000. We've made films for more than that. So, and now we're approaching multi-million-dollar budget. So it's all the same. I promise you, it's all the same.
And when you're when you're starting a new project, what's the first thing that locks you in? Like the story, the visual, the message. What is it?
It's definitely the story. The idea. I usually have a notes section in my phone where I'll write down ideas. That's the first step. And usually the indicator for me on whether I should pursue this or not is, will it leave me alone? If I can put it in my notes section and I don't think about it again, probably something to, and sometimes you revisit, you're in different paths of life and you start remembering like, oh, I remember that idea. I align with that idea right now. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, if it's something I need to make now, it won't leave me alone. The idea won't leave me alone, and I'm constantly thinking about it. And then next thing I know, yeah. And next thing I know, I'm writing a treatment, or I'm writing the script, or and there's litmus tests, right? So, I have a great group of confidants who I'll pitch my films to, filmmakers I respect, filmmakers who I know love cinema and really care about this. And on the other end of the spectrum, I'll pitch something to my wife and be like, yeah, I thought about this. And then usually gauge her response, like, "Oh, that's interesting," or
You're like,
I don't know if you feel like that.
audience. Yeah.
Well, what my wife and I love to kind of say is she's a general audience member. She's not a filmmaker. She thinks she's not creative. She's very creative, but she's like where I can go and see a film and tear it to pieces and really tear it apart to see what this thing's made of. She's just the general audience member. That's how she likes to think of herself. So that's my litmus test for what's a general audience member going to think of this. Not just her. I mean, I'll ask different people. But on the filmmaking side or the cinephile side, my close confidants in that world, or I'll gauge their responses. Oh, that's crazy. Like the last film we made, my buddies and I were on Discord gaming, and I'm like, I had a funny thought about this, and it's our last film's relatively explicit, so you tell me what to say and not to say, or what's allowed or what isn't.
No, you're good.
But I had a funny thought of like, what? It's something to the effect, and my buddy has it recorded because he used to stream, and he had this conversation recorded, and he has it somewhere. He showed it to me the other day. I said something to the effect of being a stupid boy around my stupid boyfriends, saying, I had a weird thought the other day. Like, is it wrong to pleasure yourself to a dead person? Is that a wrong thing? And everybody kind of started laughing. And then they started laughing, and then they're all like, "That's weird. That's interesting. What does that mean? What does that need to look like?" And that led into like, well, why is this thought occurring? Right? Like, not for my life, but if I turn this into a film, why is this thought in the film? Oh, well, maybe a couple's having a conversation about this. And that ensues personal details about each other that they didn't know. And that opens up a can of worms. And that, opens up the drama, if you will. And next thing we know, we're shooting a, $7,000 film about that concept. And to date, it's been one of our most successful films. So a universal topic of like, well, if a couple's in bed talking about stuff like this, those like, what people deem in the film world kitchen sink cinema, which is just a couple talking in their kitchen sink against their kitchen sink. That's the cinema that fascinates me the most. That's where I see the human condition really come to life. So that was a big moment of like, I'm finally exploring the topics I want to explore in these settings. And again, we brought out Eller Coltrane from Boyhood, and I mean, he's been in so many amazing things. And Jessica Medas, and these two actors were just phenomenal. They made these characters, really come to life. And we've had filmmakers from all over the world. They'll reach out to me and say, I screened your film at this festival, or I screened your film wherever. Or I'll send them private screeners sometimes if it's appropriate. And they'll reach out and they're like, hey, this reminded me of this film. This reminded me of Ingmar Bergman's Scenes from a Marriage. And, that's one of my favorite things. Or this reminded me of the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise. And that's great because you're trying to emulate certain cinema, but it's also like we had a really great individual who I could say some stuff about, but he's worked on massive films. And he's become a friend of ours. And he saw the film. And I hadn't seen him for a few months. I see him again on a film set here in downtown. And
You're going to have to send it to me now.
Yeah, sure. And he starts quoting the film to me. And he says, I showed, we started seeing it and we're laughing, we're not. And then we stop laughing and we start talking to each other like, man, this could happen to any one of us. Like any one of us could be having this conversation with our wife or girlfriend. That's pretty crazy. Like, or we've had a version of this conversation with our spouse or with whoever. And I kind of take that at face value because I'm like, okay, cool. You're just trying to be nice to a younger filmmaker. And then he starts quoting the film. And he starts saying, and I'm like, wait a second. I sent it to you. Who'd you show this to? He's like, oh, my lighting team. I got 17 guys under me on this film. We all saw it together and we had a blast. And I kind of was like, oh, that's sweet, man. Thank you. Cool. And then I'm in a different part of that set, and this is a 1,000-person crew. So I'm walking around, and somebody stops me, and they're like, "Hey, are you Carlos?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I saw your film. Tommy showed me your film." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay, cool." So he wasn't bullshitting. He's like, it was real. And you hear these people, and that's the most inspiring thing is to know that we're setting out.
It's relatable.
Yeah.
And I think there's power with films that are relatable.
Sure.
Then they're personal, whether it's the same version or a different version or just slightly different or anything.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing we set out to do, it's that. And it doesn't have to be in the context of a couple. It could be a horror film that really makes you imagine, what if I was in that situation? The doors are locked and this and that.
Or it just triggers.
Or it might trigger.
Later in life, it's like me, I can't with horror films. It's so, I'm so sensitive. Like, I don't understand myself. Because when I was little, like, I was so into them. But now it's like if I watch
Sure.
anything in the supernatural, whatever,
Right.
I'm traumatized for life. So I'm like, why do I want to torture myself? Like, I don't want to do this to me.
Yeah, I think that's okay though. I think that again, it teaches, and that's why cinema is so powerful, because depending on the stage of life you're in, that's how it's going to affect you. And you may think this is why we think it's important to revisit films after X amount of time, because
Because you see them different.
yeah, you're in a different stage of life.
And when you're, I mean, in the trenches,
Yeah.
just deadlines, budgets, expectations.
Yeah.
How do you stay centered and, creative through it all?
That's the key thing, right? I think something that I've adopted, that I learned is there's a quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the quote is from Stephen King. And he's, naturally Stephen King is this massively famous and successful writer. And he says, if you are feeling uninspired, if you're feeling like you don't want to write, if you don't have anything to write, you're feeling uninspired, read. And if you're feeling overwhelmed with life, write. And that has helped me massively in my endeavors. So like if I'm feeling like, I don't feel like writing today, or I have to storyboard this film, or I have to I don't really feel like it. It's been a day. Number one, in our field, you don't have a choice. You have to kind of get up and do it. But the other side of that coin is like, I'll watch films. I'll watch films that I've never seen to kind of try to get a different perspective on life. Or I'll rewatch something that I know is going to kickstart that inspiration again. And it's not just films, but music and different situations. But that's my version of, if I'm uninspired to read. If I'm uninspired, I'll watch films. I'll watch as many films as I can. I think good cinema begets good cinema. So the more filmmakers can watch and consume, the better filmmaker you're going to be. And when I'm feeling like, oh man, I had a rough day. Today's been, we had so many production meetings, or I had to deal with this actor, this personality, or this situation, or whatever, that's when I'll sit down at my writing desk and force myself to get a couple pages out or whatever. But I think it's just important to have balance. I think there's nothing like balance. I think some people can drown themselves in their creative endeavors, so much so that this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think writing block is real. Writer's block. I don't think it's real.
Ooh, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. I get so much flack for it, like with my writing friends. But I don't think it's real. I don't. I think there's always something that can kickstart your creativity. And sometimes it means whatever you're writing, you're going to hit walls. Hitting walls is not the same as writer's block. I think whenever you hit a wall, you probably need to leave it alone for a little while. And you might have to live some life before you can come back to it. You might just have a crazy weekend with your friends, or go to a movie with your wife or whatever. And that's going to spark some humanity in you. And naturally that'll fuel your work. So I don't believe in writer's block. I think it's like the boogeyman. It only can get you if you believe in it. So I think it's important to have balance. It's you can't make art without living life. So you kind of have to go out and live some life. And that's the experience, right? I mean, you asked me earlier if I had kids, and I don't. And it's been mostly a conscious decision between my wife and I, because we want our kids to feel like they can do anything, right? We want our kids to, like, when we have kids, we want them to come out and be like, oh, like, mom's a doctor and dad's a filmmaker. That's amazing. Like, I can do whatever. I can tackle the world. And
I mean, we learn by example.
right.
So.
And I want my kid to feel that sense of like almost like empowerment. And I feel like I can't do that if I haven't felt empowered or accomplished to an extent. And it'll never end, right? But there will come a time where like, all right, cool, it's time. But we do feel that way. And that seems to be like a good common balance of like, well, we're doing our thing. We're each exploring our fields and fulfilling kind of bucket lists of what we want to do. We're traveling, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I think that keeps us centered to go do our creative or, career endeavors and then come back and also have a life, go out with your spouse and go out with your friends and spend time with family and travel and all that jazz. I think there has to be a balance. I think it can't all be creative. You'll run out of fuel.
Yeah.
So
You feel burnt out, you feel tired, uninspired.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that can be the law.
Yeah. No, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of life. It's part of being a human being is running out of fuel, feeling burnt out. If you're creative, I hope you're channeling that into your work. If you're not, I hope you're using that as some type of lesson for the next thing. But the good thing is there's no wrong way to be a human. Not to the fullest. There's a bad person out there, but there's no wrong way about doing this. We're all just trying to figure it out. And my team and I, we always agree that art is the exploration of life and trying to make sense of life. And what better way than to live life and then make a film about it and say, well, this is a feeling I had and I wanted to explore.
Yeah.
And my wife and I always have these really funny conversations because I've made films about past experiences or past relationships and stuff like that. And there will come a time where she's like, I know all about your life and your exes or whatever. And she'll say, when are you going to stop making films about that person or that situation? And I always say, and it's a funny conversation because it's a bit of a, if you're married,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
a bit of a personal contextual conversation. So to see it on a film screen, it's different, right? So my contention is always, well, hey, I'm not exploring the person or the experience as much as I'm exploring the feeling, the feeling of being dumped, the feeling of being cheated on, the feeling of being this. So it's more about that feeling because the feeling's universal. The experience, maybe not so much. It was my experience, but the feeling is something that everybody can relate to, and I want to explore that. And it really is true. I think that, but again, you can't do that if you've never been through it. You can't bring it justice,
So take us through your process. What does that journey look like? Like the idea, like going from the idea to having the film finished.
So we have a very, we have an amazing team at Tower Productions. We have a 10-person executive committee at Tower. These 10 individuals come from different walks of life cinematically. So some of them are producers, some of them are directors, writers, cinematographers, and some of them even come from grip and electric and doing that for 15 years in film. So we all it's a very well balanced, and on top of that, they're all very genre diverse. So some of them are horror fans, some of them are drama fans, comedies. Like one of our newest producers, her favorite film is Terminator 2. So it's again, we come from different backgrounds, and we'll bring a script to the table, and nobody gets favoritism in the situation. We have a very rigorous greenlight process. So we'll read the script together, we'll talk about it. We say, do we align with this? Is this a story we want to help tell? Is this a story we want under our banner of Tower Productions? And if it's an overwhelming yes, we'll start developing the film. If it's an overwhelming no or it needs work, it'll sit on the shelf until it's ready. And let's say we hit a green light with a film. It's kind of off to the races. What does this film need? Is it, is it a $200,000 film? Is it a $2,000 film? Is it a $200 film? It just depends, right? So we kind of take a look at what the film needs in terms of resources, or what needs this location, and X amount of actors, and X amount of cameras, and X amount of crew. So that's kind of the pre-production process. We start putting together the film. We start seeing when's a viable date. Do we need 6 months to prep this film? Do we need 2 months? Do we need a year? There's films that we've had in development for 5 years, and we're still garnering kind of those resources. So we kind of go through that. If the film gets greenlit, we put the film together. Is there a director attached? Do we need to attach a director? Because I'll serve as the executive producer for every one of our projects. There's times where I'll direct, more often than not. But there's times where I'm not the right director for the project. So who do we need to get? Who can bring justice to the story? And then from there, we literally will start with film scouting. Location scouting. Well, this film requires an apartment in downtown with a balcony. Okay, let's go check out some apartments with balconies and see what that feels like. And our producers, they're an amazing team of producers. Francis Isaguirre, Austin Young, and Jason Carranza, and myself will get together as producers and say, okay, this film needs, 2 cars, and it needs this balcony thing, and it needs the streetcar downtown or whatever. So we'll start making these phone calls, contacting the owners of these things, and then just start lining up with our dates, with our budgets. What are we going to feed the crew? What are we going to, we're going to have snacks for them on set. But the most important part of that process is creatively, what is this thing saying? And how can we help that director? Or if I'm directing, how can my team help me tell this story properly? And creatively, what is it saying? So every director is different. My process as a director is, what do I want this thing to say? And can I communicate that to every single one of my department heads? Can I communicate that to my cinematographer who's in charge of camera, my gaffer who's in charge of light, my costume and makeup departments, my actors? So that's my job, is creatively, what do I want this thing to say and how do I want all of us to say it? And then they have their teams. So these are my department heads, but then they have their 5, 6, 7-person teams who have to, align.
Oh my goodness, that sounds. Because you can see it. I mean, you have the idea, you know what it wants to look like, but just having the, you portraying how exactly it is that you want things to look like, because then that needs a different angle, that needs a certain pause on a word, that needs all these little things. So that seems like a lot of work.
Well, it is. Like I said, I can't take credit for all of it entirely, because the vision, sure, a director should have a vision, but it really is about how you can communicate. You almost have to be a better communicator. Something that some of our favorite filmmakers say is, you don't have to know jack about lighting or camera or music. You don't have to know any of that. You have to know how to communicate your vision to people who are very good at that job. So in my case, thankfully, I have a shorthand now with my cinematographer, and we'll say, hey, like, our process is, we're going to storyboard this together. I'll have my version, you'll have your version, and then let's see how they get married. Let's see how we can marry these visuals. And then do the same with my costume person. Hey, these are the visuals I'm thinking. This is what I think they should wear. And she'll come with her ideas. Okay, this is what I think. This is the makeup, natural makeup, this, that. My composer, the cool thing with my composer and my cinematographer is, I will make them watch so many films. I'll have a list of 50
This is your homework before we start.
Really, yeah. And if I can, I'll sit with them and watch the films and say, this is what I'm thinking. And sometimes you'll show them a 2.5-hour film for 3 seconds of screen time that we're trying to capture. And that's the most important part of the process for me, is if I can communicate what I think is powerful cinema to help inform our film. That's, I think, is the most important job of a director. So it is a lot, but it's very fulfilling.
And what do you think comes more naturally to you, being a director, producer, or writer?
Director, for sure. I think producing is kind of like
And for people that don't know, maybe
Right.
we can explain a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I guess we'll start with writing, right? A writer will write a screenplay that is basically just your guideline on how a film should read, sound, look, locations, what day or time of night, rather. Day or night, is it, what city is it set in, et cetera, et cetera. It's just this big guidebook for your film. And its screenplays are very unique. They don't read like novels. They don't read like books. They read like screenplays. They don't read like plays. They read like screenplays. They're very specific. So that's kind of the writing part. The producing part is, a producer will do everything in their power to get the director what they need for the film, be it the location, cast, crew, equipment, budgets. So that's a producer's job, is to literally help put the thing together, the infrastructure, the logistics. And then directing, your job is to literally communicate to each department on how the vision has to be executed. So that can mean a ton of different things, but the biggest difference I tend to divide is producing is logistical problem solving, directing is creative problem solving.
Okay.
That's kind of how I divide them. That's why for producing is kind of like second nature now. You know how to put a film together. One of our newest producers, Jason, he says it does itself. Like once you kind of drop the first domino, you align the dominoes, and once you push the first one, that's it. So producing is second nature. We've done enough films. We've done over 50 films. So we know how to put a film together. So producing is kind of that. Writing is probably the hardest thing for me. I think putting stuff on paper, you're going to have so many revisions, so many drafts. You're going to change a comma that is going to make a difference for certain dialogue and stuff like that. What I love about writing is writing dialogue. I love writing dialogue. Dialogues is like music to me. So it's a great part. It's not what I'm drawn to right away. But directing, whether it's my script or somebody else's, that seems to come natural to me. That seems like it's my favorite part of the whole process, to sit in the director's chair and figure it out creatively.
And as a director, we talked about hitting walls when writing. But maybe have you ever hit a wall while directing, and how did it test to you, and how did you grow from it?
Oh, absolutely. I could tell you some stories from our last film that on paper is a very easy film to execute. It's two people talking in a room. But we ran into so many issues on that production, not because of the crew or not because of the cast. But for instance, we took over this apartment complex for this film. We had, I think, 4 apartments. 2 of them were set, 2 of them were home base and like storage for gear and stuff like that. And we took over this whole complex, and there's residents there, but mostly empty apartments. It was aesthetically what we needed for the production. This beautiful location. It had a balcony that I needed overlooking downtown and stuff like that. And it was great. And we got it ready, and all the crew came together, and it was great. And we get to what we call our table reads the day before. And that just means all the cast and main crew get together. We read the script. You can see the cast in their characters, and you can kind of start making adjustments from there. We have a great day. We send the cast off to lunch. Tell them to meet us on location for rehearsals. We get to rehearsals. Everybody's loading in gear. We're all feeling good. We're all feeling ready for a 7 a.m. call time, And mind you, most films go for 12 hours a day. We work 12 hours a day to make our day. This was our first film where we worked with SAG, with Screen Actors Guild, because our actors were Screen Actors Guild union actors. This was right at the tail end of the Screen Actors Guild strike, which was not a easy thing to maneuver, but we got through it. And we had hungry actors. They were on strike for, 8 months,
Yeah.
Nobody was working, so they were hungry to get back on set, and we provided that for them. So everything's feeling great. We're getting to day one. We have people coming to visit our sets, mentors of ours, and people who, support us, people who are, high hitters in film. And they say, this is looking great. This looks like a feature film. This looks like a $1 million budget. Like, you guys are doing something really special here. So we're feeling good,
Yes.
And we get to the set the next day, and somebody had broken into one of the apartments. Thankfully not one of ours.
Okay.
Like, not one of the ones for production, but they broke in, and it was like, we assumed, like, they told us later it was like a homeless person. It was like a drug addict who urinated all over the apartment and made the building smell like crazy. That was the first thing at the top of the day, but the crew didn't skip a beat. Everybody cleaned it up. We figured it out. Our producers were like, we're going to run and grab Febreze and do this and do that. All right, cool. We got past that hurdle. We're having a safety meeting in the courtyard of of the location. And we're right up against Overland, right next to the street. And a car and a bus get into a car accident right in front of our location. We're like, all right, cool. Well, this doesn't concern us. We're shooting inside. All right, let's just keep it going. There's stuff like some guy later or the next day maybe crashes into multiple vehicles on the way to his location, which is our apartment complex. and some guy in another truck being like, keep him there, we call the cops.
And you're like, is someone filming me?
Like seriously, like we're like, is this a reality show? But we were about to break for lunch, and we're setting up for lunch, and this crazy dude starts, and some of our cars are parked in this parking lot right across the street, and our producer's like, I'm recording this because that's my car. They hit my car, and this guy gets out of his car, doesn't skip a beat, walks to the apartment complex we're on, doesn't say anything to anybody. The cops can't do anything about it because they don't have a warrant, and he's already inside his apartment.
Yeah.
So we're kind of just like on standby until that whole mess is dealt with. We send a good chunk of the crew home for safety so that something happens, nobody gets hurt. So we're working with skeleton crew that time. And mind you, again, we're working against a 12-hour schedule. When you're working with unions, you don't have a choice. If you don't make your time, you get in trouble. Like you get sued, or you get penalties, you get fined. So we had to make our time. No, it doesn't matter what happened. We used the streetcar, the El Paso streetcar, for one of our scenes. They were late. They were like 2 hours late because somebody had crashed into them. And they were like, we're so sorry. And they were so sweet. They were very kind. They were like, we painted, though, because they let me pick which color, which model of the streetcar, everything. They were so cool. And they're like, we painted it. We like fixed it and painted it. That's why we took 2 hours. So it was a very sweet notion, but we were like running against the clock. I mean, again, these are just some of the stories, but
because then it messes up with your budget.
it messes with our budget because perhaps we have to add another day to production, or we have to replace certain sequences, or we lose our crew, we lose our time, we lose our actors. So my ultimate goal as a director is to do two things. My favorite director of all time, his name's Martin Scorsese. He's known for films like Goodfellas and The Departed and Hugo and just all these beautiful pieces of cinema. And to the point where my tattoo is one of those films. And they tell stories about him. Number one, it's two things, right? Number one, I want to love cinema the way he does. He just loves cinema. Even if he wasn't a filmmaker, he would be a champion of going to the movie theaters, of making films, of seeing films. So that's one. Two, he did a film called Wolf of Wall Street. And on that film is Jonah Hill. He's one of the actors. And Jonah Hill tells this story that it's so fascinating to watch Scorsese work because a panicked crew member will come to him, and assistant director, whoever, will be like, Marty, we're running into this issue and this is happening, and we're just going to have to figure we lost this piece of equipment, or we lost that actor. And Jonah Hill says that Marty closes his eyes for 10 seconds, opens his eyes, says, okay, this is what we're going to do. Doom, doom, doom. That's it. Because he's been making films for 60 years. So it's easy for him to fix these problems. Again, logistical and creative problem solving. So that's my goal, is to become a filmmaker that can close his eyes for 10 seconds, say, okay, I've done this before. We've ran into that issue on this film. All right, we just got to do this and fix the problem. Yes. So that's the hope. You're going to hit blocks. What I always tell young filmmakers is we've fallen in love with the pre-production process in Tower because it's so crucial. Something wrong will happen. Something bad is going to happen on your set. It's just going to. That's the nature of the beast. It's like Murphy's Law. It's a film set. You're running against the clock, against money, limited resources, crew, etc. Something bad is going to happen. And it doesn't have to be all that bad. Hopefully it's nothing that puts your crew in danger or anything like that. But something bad is going to happen. If you can align all the fire extinguishers that you need to put out those fires, you're going to be in a much better position. You're not going to have to waste time to figure it out on set. If you can figure it out in the pre-production process. Well, I need a fire extinguisher for when the actor is hungry. I need a fire extinguisher for when the location falls through. I need a fire extinguisher for, you line them all up and you're ready to go. So
you're prepared.
Yeah. So that helps. That helps a ton. And I can't stress enough to surround yourself with the right people. Because if you surround yourself with people who care, who align with your vision, who care about telling the story you're trying to tell, everybody has the same goal, to help finish this film. And there's, some people are jaded in this industry. Some people just look at it as a paycheck, or they're doing somebody a favor. But I'm very stringent when it comes to picking my crew. to the point where I want the production assistants to be excited about this or excited about the story we're telling. And usually we do all right.
And for those that are watching or listening, who dream of telling stories through film, what's one truth they need to hear, and even if it's tough?
How much time do we have?
I mean, just one truth.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's not easy. It's certainly not easy. It's one truth people need to hear is that this industry's changed, and telling stories isn't about being famous or making X amount of money. That's gonna run dry really fast. So if you're in this because you love telling stories, you love the art and craft of cinema, you'll survive a long time in this industry. Even if you're getting paid a minimal amount or not getting paid at all in your early days, you're going to do it because you love it. And if you do it because you love it, you're going to succeed. This isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And film is for the patient. It just is. The nature of film, the nature of most films is that they don't get made. That's just the nature of Hollywood and making movies. Most films don't get made. They just don't. So if you can ride out the wave long enough to get your film made, or to make it yourself and keep making it yourself, and then when you're done with that one, you make the next one, and until you can get people to connect with your films, you're going to be all right. But if you're in for this for the clout, or to get on TikTok or Instagram and be like, yeah, I'm making films, and that's all you do, you're going to burn out. You're going to be a flash in the pan. So, yeah.
And you've worked with talented people. What is it that you look in a collaborator, whether it's a writer, an actor, producer?
I think the biggest thing I look for is that they care. That they care just as much about the story or the characters. If I'm looking to cast certain individuals, it's always nice that they have certain credits or have worked with certain people. The people who I've aligned with, people like Eller Coltrane or Jessica for my last film, they've worked with legends. Genuinely have worked with legends and have worked on massive Academy Award-winning films. But they don't care about any of that. They care about what kind of story we can help tell. Somebody like Eller, who worked on Boyhood, Academy Award-winning film, worked with Richard Linklater, one of my heroes, one of his heroes. Doesn't matter. Because he understands that the end goal is to tell stories that matter. And if I can get all of my collaborators to align with that sentiment, I've done something right.
And I think it shows when in a film, like when a film is done, like, from the heart, and there's passion, and there is, this, I don't know, just this grit of just wanting a message to be conveyed,
right?
Then that's when there's power in a film.
Absolutely.
I feel like you can just feel it from like everyone being excited, like everyone just like putting all the effort and doing, like being this many hours on set and working this many days, and having gone through all these walls, and then just you just keep on going. I think it's felt by the audience.
Good. I couldn't agree more. That's what we aim for. There's the interesting thing about film is it's the amalgamation of all art forms. It's photography and light and painting and music and sound and every single art form you will see in a film, whether that's painting through set design and production design or music, or everything comes together for film. It's all these art forms coming together. But what a lot of people fail to understand, another hard lesson to learn for people, is that film is the constant battle of art and commerce. There's no other art form that's inherently intended to make money. But film, you have to make money. Yeah. I mean, music is obviously in that direction too, but there's no other art form that's expected to make money the way film is. You're hoping to make a $50 million film so that you make a $200 million box office. So because of that, it ends up being reboots and remakes and intellectual properties and stuff that holds no weight, just stuff that's meant to sell tickets. So we're fighting extremely hard because there's a renaissance in independent filmmaking right now that's like washing that away. And then there's a very special turn right now, post-pandemic, post-strikes, that is flipping Hollywood on its head. And the one thing I've expressed most recently to everybody is like, there's no right answer anymore. There's no formula. It's the Wild West again in film. So we can go out there and make whatever we want because streaming changes that. Some of it for good, some of it for bad. But the best thing we can do is make good films and also encourage people to go watch original films. Like if there's any takeaway from this is go support independent filmmakers and go to movie theaters because they're dying, unfortunately. And that's so sad for us as filmmakers because that's what we dreamt of, right? To see our films on the big screen.
Do you think it happened after the pandemic? Because I feel almost like it wasn't dying. Like the movies were still like a thing, but after you stay at home, and then I've realized, I don't know, you can educate me because I'm ignorant on the topic, but I've realized that there's films that it doesn't, they're in the theater for like maybe 2 weeks, and then now they're in Amazon or Netflix or any other.
That's the new standard.
So then it only gives them like 2 weeks of people wanting to go there, like rather than if, I really want to watch it because of this actor or like this story or whatever. I feel like it almost like takes away from, I guess, this not agenda, but this thing of just making people go to movie theaters, So I don't know, like why.
It's there was a combination of things. The pandemic was certainly one of them. There was petitions during the pandemic to keep certain movie theaters alive because a lot of movie houses closed. Sure, it was the pandemic. I always like to think of the pandemic as like an interesting kind of final nail in the coffin. And we're hoping that's not the case, right? But leading up to the pandemic, what was happening in film, or what was happening in movie theaters, was superhero films and Marvel movies and DC movies and Star Wars. All of that was what people were being drawn to the movie theaters too. So the minute there isn't something like that, people stop paying attention. So it's almost like that started shifting the culture of movie theaters. Was you're not going to go to a movie theater unless you or your kid wants to see the next Avengers, right?
You or your kids. Right. It's mostly you.
Mostly, yeah. No,
I know a lot of men that want more than their kids.
I agree. I'm saying that existed, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our like heroes like to call them like these amusement park films because that's all they were, right? Yeah. They didn't hold much weight, and that slowly started transitioning out romantic comedies or comedy films or dramas. People weren't going to the movies for those, and then the pandemic happened. People got used to staying at home. But what's important to note, the difference really of staying at home and watching a film and going to a movie theater. A lot of people like to say that it's a commune type of thing. It brings you together with people who you don't know, and you are sharing the same emotion. You're laughing, you're crying, you're reacting. And though I think that's true to an extent, this kind of community of people coming together, I think that there's other filmmakers who share a different sentiment that I think is stronger. It forces you to, when you're at home, you can pause it, go to the restroom, get on your phone. I'm hungry. I'm going to stop and go to the kitchen. When you go to the movie theater, you're basically having a social contract with yourself. For the next 2 hours, I'm going to sit and watch this film. Mm-hmm. And hopefully not take my phone out or go to the restroom as much or whatever. You're basically committing to the act of dedicating watching a film. There isn't a filmmaker out there. I just don't think there is. Being a filmmaker for so much time, I don't think there's a filmmaker out there that is cool with you not watching the entirety of their film.
Right.
or watching a piece and then I'm gonna pause here and I'll come back to it tomorrow, or I'm bored. I'm gonna get on my phone and
It takes away also. I think when you pause, when you go to the restroom, like it's almost a momentum. Like the film is building, building you to have this emotion little by little, and then you're about to. Then if you pull out your phone, if you pause it, like then it takes like you go back.
Yeah.
It's not gonna feel the same.
And you're a good audience member, Stacey. Because most people don't share that sentiment. Most people are like, doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect me. But as a filmmaker, I can tell you, as a director, I can tell you, we're trying to put you in a trance. And the minute you pause it or you're on your phone, it interrupts the trance. You're now out of the magic. So it is crucially important to watch a film the entire way through. I remember, and people are babies now when it comes to watching films because we're so accustomed. People got accustomed to watching series in 1 hour chunks or half-hour chunks.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's bad. We're in a really interesting kind of golden age of television.
Or the microwave era is also like you want everything fast.
Yeah, for sure. But if you haven't done your homework, go watch Eddie Martin Scorsese film, and they're over 2.5 hours each one. One of the ones that's burst a lot of controversy was a film called The Irishman because it was a Netflix release. It was only in theaters for a week, and most of the time when they do that, they're only putting a movie theater or a film in movie theaters for a limited amount of time for two reasons. Either the directors explicitly requested that and they have enough juice to warrant it, or they're trying to qualify for an award.
Okay.
So, for instance, the Academy Awards forever, the stipulation was you had to be in theaters for 2 weeks in order to qualify for an Academy Award. That's changing. That unfortunately, the pandemic changed that. But Scorsese made a film called The Irishman, and I swear there was people online being like, "Oh, this is how," because it's a 3.5 hour film. This is how you watch it. You like in 6 episodes. You watch 45 minutes here and 50 minutes there and an hour there and 30 minutes there, and they divided it into a series. And Scorsese was like, "Nope, that's not how I meant you to watch it. I meant you to watch it in the 3.5 hour block. Like commit to it."
Yeah.
Sadly, that's not how people are consuming media right now. So our jobs as ambassadors of cinema and ambassadors of movies are to come out and say, no, like a filmmaker spent 6 months making this thing. Sometimes they'll go 2 years in post-production by the time it's out. They did it with the intention that you watch it as a film. If they wanted to make a TV show, they'd make a TV show. So dedicate the amount of time, and people, for some reason, it really does like baffle me. People would rather watch 6 1-hour episodes of a TV show than a 2-hour film. That's less time.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Sure, you can take breaks in between episodes or whatever, but you commit to binge watching 6 episodes that are an hour long. That's 6 hours of your day. That's like I get home, I make dinner, and for 6 hours I'm watching TV. And most of it is brain rot. Most of it is not saying anything. But a film that's trying to say something in this small capacity, you're not willing to pay attention to. It's just an interesting situation. Yeah. So please condition your kids to watch films, like even if it's Pixar or whatever.
TikTok, Reels, everything's so fast.
No, for sure.
And the dopamine is in our brain, and we want another one. Yeah, there we go.
If it's the right film, you'll get your your dopamine. So, you would hope.
Yes, like you would hope. If we fast forward a little bit, what's a future project or a passion that you're fired up about, but you haven't tackled yet?
Yeah. Well, thankfully we're in a very rich, fertile stage of development, and what that means is we're developing either projects, screenplays, pitch decks, packages to pitch to the bigger studios, streaming services, producers. And through that process, I'm part of, I'm pitching certain films. One of them being a musical feature film that we're going to shoot in El Paso. That's set in El Paso and tells an El Paso story in a very human way.
I feel like that's going to be a hard one. I mean,
it is.
just because to find someone that's really good at acting and really good at singing
Yep. And dance.
and dancing, I just feel like that's a hard one.
Yeah, the triple threat is
I know
not easy. No, the triple threat is hard, but the beauty of making films is that you're not limited to your backyard. You know what I'm saying? You can talk to artists all over the world to hopefully get somebody that's right for the part. And it's not easy. But anything about a musical is not easy. You have to write music. You have to write lyrics. You have to sit with your composers and arrange this. You have to get the right cast, get the right crew. How are we going to make this thing come to life? Do we want a crane? Do we want a 10-foot techno crane coming to the shot and then a steady camera? I mean, it's not easy. Trust me, we've been in development for this one for a little while for the same reason, because we care about telling it right. And El Paso is just so fruitful when it comes to artistic energy that we think the musical is the perfect thing to tell a story about El Paso. But again, getting away from the stigma of certain aspects of our culture that has turned our culture into caricatures, you know, because people see Mexicans or Mexican Americans and they automatically think, pachucos or lowrider culture or immigrants in negative lights. And none of that is exclusive, to El Paso. Sure, there's a big culture of that, but we're not all zoot suits. You know what I'm saying? We can tell universal stories about life and love and loss, and that happens tenfold in our city. So a musical is a very exciting idea that we're trying to tackle right now. And thankfully, the screenplay's finished. We also have a proof of concept short film that we're getting ready to do to serve as pitching. And pitch deck is ready. The music is ready. Everything's all but greenlit. So we're very excited about that project. We have over 5 feature films in development, and feature films just means anything over an hour, essentially. What you categorize as a feature film is what you would watch in a movie theater or on Netflix or something like that. But we've also have a slate of short films that we feel very strongly about that we want to tell. So we're in development for about 5 features, another 15 short films or so, 3 series, TV series. We have a podcast network, and we're constantly doing episodes every week, talking to amazing filmmakers on one of our podcasts. And the other one is just for our sanity. We review films every week. Just because it keeps us in. It reminds us why we're doing this, right? When we can talk about the films we love. So that's an ongoing project. And I've recently become an advisory board member for the El Paso Film Festival. So that's happening in September, the end of September. So please make it out to that. But getting that ready, getting the film festival ready, and guests and programming and what films are we going to screen. There's multiple facets of like the film world that we're all kind of involved in, but we're very excited about the projects we're developing right now, or we're pitching, because like I just came back from Austin to pitch some films to some producers out there, and everybody's connecting with the material, and we're very happy about that. So it's pretty interesting. Again, I could tell you some stories. Like thankfully they said I can talk about this, so you're getting an exclusive here.
Nice.
But I just made it out to Troublemaker Studios for a pitch meeting. Troublemaker Studios is Robert Rodriguez's film studio. So the most recent thing they did there was Alita Battle Angel, which is a James Cameron film that became a Robert Rodriguez film. It's all this film geek stuff that's very impressive to us. But this guy has made films like Once Upon a Time in Mexico and Mariachi and Desperado and Spy Kids, and again all these amazing films. And I got to do some pitch meetings there, and they gave me a private tour of the studio and showed me just kind of everything that's going on. And it's the producer, the executive who's helping us with all this. She's the sweetest, and she loves El Paso, and she's come out here for some film festivals, and she sees us, and she sees that that we care. And that's the biggest payoff for us, is that industry decision makers are looking at us like, oh yeah, you guys are our peers, and that's how they're treating us. So very inspiring stuff. We're in a, I guess, at a very kind of fertile area of our career right now.
Well, that sounds. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
That's great.
We appreciate it.
To finish off, I'm just gonna ask you some questions, and
Yeah.
you can just answer with the first thing that comes out to your mind.
Okay. So like a rapid fire.
Yeah, like a rapid fire. What's your biggest fear?
To not make films.
Fair enough. What's one book that changed your life?
Oh man. Wow. Let's say. I'll give you two. This is Water. By oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. I'll get you his name. David Foster Wallace. David Foster Wallace is This Is Water, and Robert Rodriguez is Rebel Without a Crew.
And what's one film that changed your life?
Man, I have my like top 10, but you know,
Top three
top three.
to make it easy.
Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting absolutely changed my life. It defined what I wanted to be as a storyteller. La La Land, because it revived musicals in a beautiful way, and it's so relevant to any artist, be it an actor, a musician, a filmmaker. It's so relevant to the artist experience. And Hugo, because it reminds us, though it's a children's film, it reminds us why cinema is so important and powerful. So yeah, those three.
Cool. What's the last song that you listened to?
The last song that I listened to, Colors by the Black Pumas.
Nice. I like that.
On the way here, actually.
And what's the one thing that you live your life by? Maybe like a.
Oh man, do what you love and love the people that help you do it.
Nice. What's the one superpower you would like to have?
The ability to what is it called? To transport, like to
Teletransport.
yeah, is that what it would be?
I'm not too sure.
Well,
Maybe I just made up a
ability
word.
to materialize in another place without having to drive or whatever, or fly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, imagine just being Capri right now or Barcelona. I would love to be there.
And on a business note, like I don't have to drive to the studio every day because we're in downtown, or like go home. Like I can be in downtown in Socorro in the split second. That would be the dream.
Right.
Genuine.
Are you like I'm just deviating, but are you into like road rage?
Oh man.
Is that what you're saying?
I think so. Maybe. I know some people who have some real tough road rage. I'm pretty patient, but yeah, sure. Every once in a while,
Yeah.
some flare ups.
Some flare-ups.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you do to relax?
I love spending time with my wife. I love spending time with my dogs. And if the triangle is spending time with my wife, spending time with my dogs, and watching films, I'm in heaven. Like if I can do that, that's the ideal relaxation for me.
And to finish off, what's the one person that inspires you the most?
The one person that inspires me the most. Oh man, I have a lot of people that inspire me. I'll give you two.
Top three.
All right, fine. I'll give you three. My wife. I think my wife is a huge inspiration. She's had to overcome a lot to do what she loves, which is going to school and academia, and she's very inspiring. She does her thing and supports me as I do mine, which is not easy. It's not easy to support a filmmaker because of the nature of the business, because of the nature of being away for so long and 12-hour work days, and thankfully we're good. We can keep our lights on and doing what we love and stuff like that. But and it has nothing to do with the money, but it has everything to do with the support. So very inspiring to see my wife do that and still support me doing my thing. Martin Scorsese, who's my cinematic hero. He every day teaches me to love cinema and it'll love you back. And I think the third one is just an amalgamation of all my team. I think all my team inspire me to be better. Everything from my direct partners, Austin and Eric, to my producers, Francis and Jason, my cinematographer, Michael Lowe, and the podcast crew, and all of our gaffers and lighting and our tower execs. Shout out to the tower execs. They're amazing team of individuals, Michael, Daniel, and Jesse, and everybody. They're just amazing. So yeah, I think that's what inspires me.
Nice. Well, that finished off our episode. But thank you so much for being here, for accepting the invitation. I learned a lot, and I'm really excited for everything that you're doing. That was great. That's awesome.
Well, we're equally as excited for what we're up to, but excited to hear new platforms like this one popping up. And so again, congratulations on the new show. And I'm sure it's going to turn into something really special. It already is. It's already something very special.
Thank you so much. Well, don't forget to follow us for Beyond the Mic with Stacy, and Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And I don't know if you want to give your credentials.
Yeah, sure. Follow us on all of the above as well. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, under Tower Productions. We also have pages for the podcast called the Towercast Network, where you can hear about new episodes. We release episodes every Monday, and you'll see some of our crazy shorts where our producer likes to spark controversial topics online about films, of course. So yeah, we have two podcasts: the Towercast, which is filmmakers. We talk to other filmmakers about trade war stories about films. We've been fortunate enough to have like Metal Barrera and Giancarlo Esposito and William H. Macy, Doug Jones, all sorts of great people who have come on and told us some stories. And stay tuned, because we're actually locking up some really great guests.
Awesome.
And the Watchtower Film Podcast, we literally just sit around, talk movies for an hour or two. And they're usually very curated, so check that out. And then, yeah, we have a lot more exciting announcements regarding our films. So just follow us on Tower Productions anywhere, towerprod.com. And you can check out what we're doing there.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you. Don't forget to follow them, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.